No.
Good.
So,
Yep.
Okay.
Alright. So how many people here are fans of the NFL? And then how many are aware of the effects that players have had injuries? Okay, so more than I thought I was. So the NFL has a problem with what is called CTE, which is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It's a hard word, which is a brain disease caused by multiple head injuries or multiple concussions. So I've had a concussion in the past when playing sports, so I kind of want to look more into it and like the research behind it. And I found that the NFL is really relevant to that, with players getting concussions consistently. So the first thing I want to point out is, what is CTE? It's a brain disease commonly found in athletes, military veterans, and others with a history of repetitive brain trauma. Basically what happens is a protein called tau, it forms clumps in the brain that slowly kills brain cells. And it's very similar to what happens to an Alzheimer's and dementia kind of. Symptoms begin years after a head injury, which is the kind of scary part about CTE, is because you get multiple concussions, but you don't really know the week after whatever happens, years after. So that's what the problem is with NFL players. They don't realize they have it until it's too late, really. So here's what a normal brain looks like without it, the concussions, and then clearly you see the effects that it takes with the tau forms, how it kills the brain cells. It just kind of shrinks the brain almost in a way. So that's what happens with players now. So symptoms, it comes into 4 stages. So the first stage is the most mellow, which is constant headaches and shortness of concentration, which is kind of what you get after a typical concussion. Second stage would be depression and mood swings. So this is kind of the start of when you're starting to realize if you're not if you're a bystander or someone in the beginning of getting CTE, you don't realize this is kind of the start of you realizing something's changing. There's a difference in how they're acting or who they are. And then it becomes worse with memory loss, explosivity, and aggression. So even more mood swings where the littlest things can tick people off, and then you can go from being happy to just snapping real quick. And then the last stage would be severe cognition problems, memory loss, paranoia, and sometimes even progressing to dementia. There's a weird link between the two where it's very similar. And then here's all the 4 stages again. So the first stage is up top. So you see how the worse the CTE gets, the more damage there is on the brain. So if you had a concussion and you're wondering, do I have CTE? The short answer is no. There has been no person who has ever had just one concussion to have CTE. You have to have multiple consistent head injuries. So don't freak out like her, you will be fine. So how do you know if you have it? Unfortunately, currently it's diagnosed after you're dead. So it has to go through a brain tissue analysis. So that's why it's kind of difficult for the NFL and really athletes in general to be able to tell if you have it or not, or why. This again, it's some dementia, so you can't really tell what is what. So there's no cure because again, it happens after death. But however, if you do think you have it, the best thing to do is see doctors and address your symptoms, and you go to targeted therapies to kind of mellow down the symptoms. But again, you really can't cure it because it will really change the way that you are and how you live your life. So that's why it really is something that I feel is taken more seriously now, because of how damaging it can be to not only you but the people that your family and people that you're around with. So again, the relevancy of the NFL. There was a survey done by the Journal of the American Medical Association, and they did out of 111 brains, whose brains are all dead, obviously, again. 110 of them out of the NFL players, they're all NFL brains. 110 of them were positive for CTE. So that's not the case right now, with the current NFL. It's not every player on the field is going to have CTE. This survey is technically a little biased because
it's only by NFL players who are dead, and like that were like known to have like concussions and stuff, but it's still alarming by that high number of how many were positive with it. And this year, the 2018 season, so last year, there were 214 concussions in the NFL, which was actually a 31% decrease from 2017. But it's still like you can still see that 214 is still a lot of concussions for a lot of people. So it's a consistent thing still happening through football. So the NFL are implementing rules to prevent head-to-head contact, like on kickoffs. It started 5 yards back now to get like more, what they call like a touchback, so you don't have to run it out. The defending team has to start 5 yards back, so they have more time to basically react to players coming at them. And then you see like if you're watching a lot of football, you see like a lot of flags thrown on like head-to-head contact calls and other things like that. So again, that's how the 214 went down from the 31%, but it's still very alarming. So again, just like that, that's like a typical, not typical, but like a kind of a normal play in football. So I chose Rob Gronkowski as an example for CTE. He hasn't been diagnosed yet, just because again, you can't give a diagnosis yet. But if you don't know Rob Gronkowski, he was a 3-time Super Bowl champ, 5-time Super Bowl Pro Bowl selection, first team All-Pro 4 times, and was the highest ranked tight end in the NFL for 5 years. So when he played, the guy was just a beast. He was really good. And he retired last year at the age of 29. Basically, he said, because 29 is a young age to retire after football, he said that he was just getting physically and like even more mentally just beat up. He was always injured, and concussions were a big problem for him. And he told CBS in an interview a couple months ago that he probably had 20 concussions, and 5 of them were to the point where he blacked out and couldn't remember them. So basically, that was like kind of the reason for him retiring, because he was scared of what his future will hold as far as CTE and how it's going to affect him. But as of today, this morning, he actually just signed with CBS. He's going to be a football analysis, so he's going to be like kind of like an announcer. And this was also, I chose Gronkowski as an example just because I thought he was the most relevant to us. I don't know, a lot of people kind of know him, but like there were countless of other examples, one being like Junior Seau, who was an old player in the 90s. He committed suicide, and they said that they did an autopsy on his brain after, and he was positive for CTE, and they said that that was probably a big factor in why he committed suicide, and his girlfriend was the one that found him. And she said that she was like finding ways that where he was like just off and wasn't like himself anymore. And at that point, like in the time when he did it, like CTE wasn't really like something that we all like recognized. Like, and all you guys raised your hand when you said like you recognize the head injuries like in football. That really wasn't a thing then, and he was kind of the one that kind of started like all the research after it. So to conclude, injuries and CTE is a big problem in the NFL, and many precautionary steps are being done by the league and players. My hope is just that many players and fans are more aware of the danger of CTE before it's too late, because then years down the road they're going to be affected by it. And really my concern for that is like their health, but also I also question 20, 30, or however X many amount of years from now, what the future of football and other sports like soccer or whatever, like physical sports, what rule restrictions or what's going to happen with them. Because I think the one thing that's really going to keep them alive is going to be the money instead of the actual playing. So, thank you.